Um, I would like to say that today I have a lot of things to cover, and I'm actually um, going to give some new ideas and new materials which have been shaping up for a long time. But finally, I've got some clarity on what we need to do. So, because this is going to be fairly long, I will start right away and hope I can cover everything in 1 hour, and then there will be 30 minutes for question and answers. So I'm going to share the screen.
Prof, sorry, you're still in mute?
Okay, so I hope that you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good. And is screen sharing still on? You can see my
Yes,
slides?
yes.
Okay, good. All right, so before we start, just some, the slides have been uploaded to SlideShare and are available from this link given here. So you can get them. I have made a few modifications. One or two slides will not be there, but then there is a weekly mailing list that you can join, and that's available for anybody. I have noticed that a lot of people on the mailing list don't get my emails because it is marked as spam. So something that you need to do is to go into your box and get retrieve one of these emails, and sort of you have to put it on a whitelist so that you can receive these emails. I have created a new website which has all the course materials, and this course is also available on the Al Nafi platform, where you can go through it in sequence and step by step. So these are some of the uh, links that are useful for later use. Now, let me start this lecture by ayat of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعد الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. So this ayat in the Quran says that the corruption in the land and sea occurs by the reason of our amal. And Allah Ta'ala gives us a little bit of a taste of what we have done, the consequences of what we have done. And this is not as punishment on this earth. On the earth, we are given this taste so that we can return to Allah Ta'ala and correct our deeds. Because if we didn't see the consequences of our deeds, then we can continue to make more and greater mistakes. So the key solution then, see, the problems are caused by our amal. They're not caused by external circumstances. So the solution is to change ourselves. Allah Ta'ala will not change our external conditions until we change what is inside us. So Allah Ta'ala has given us the complete and perfect deen, and He says that This is the greatest gift of Allah Ta'ala for mankind. So it often happens that what we think conflicts with what the Quran says. And today it is common for us to adjust the Quran instead of our thoughts, because that is easier. We reinterpret the Quran to make it in line with the way we think. So it is much harder to do the opposite, but that is what we need. We need to adjust our ways of thinking. We have to take the Quran as given that this is the truth. And if my thinking is not aligned with that, then I have to change my way of thinking. I shouldn't change the Quran. So this is very difficult to do because changing our thoughts requires changing our actions. Our thoughts are tied to the way we act. So they are designed to justify how we act to ourselves. So to change our thinking, we have to change our actions. So the Quran was complete and perfect guidance, and it started with the command to read, and Allah Ta'ala gave knowledge. Allah Ta'ala will allama al-insanu ma lam ya'lam. Allah Ta'ala gave knowledge to mankind which they did not have. This knowledge had tremendous impact on the world. It took the backward Bedouin and made them world leaders, and it created a civilization which was the world leader in knowledge for more than 1,000 years. So this knowledge is very powerful. So the question is, what was this knowledge that Allah Ta'ala gave to the early Muslims? And do we still have this knowledge? If we had this knowledge, then we wouldn't be in the bad condition that the Muslims are today. And then the question is, does this knowledge still have the same revolutionary power that it did 1400 years ago? So it seems as if it does not, because we have this knowledge and we're not launching a revolution. But if we accept what the Quran says is true and change what our thoughts are telling us, then we have to realize that it must be the case that we don't have this knowledge, because if we did, then this knowledge would teach us how to change the world. So this is the critical question. What does the Quran teach us about how to change the world today? So some of the lessons that I have already given, that the Quran tells us that you have to change yourselves if you want to change the world. So one of the reasons that we are unable to see the treasure of the Quran is because we are following blindly the Jews and the Christians, as reported in Hadith, that there will come a time when we will follow the ways of the Jews and the Christians. There is a prophecy that Islam came as a stranger and it will become a stranger. So blessed are the strangers. So we have to become strange. If we will follow Islam, we will appear to be very strange to our fellows. So instead of seeking guidance from the Jews and the Christians, instead of asking a Harvard professor to solve our economic problems, we should turn to the Quran. So today the problem is that we are very impressed by the West. So every Muslim student around the world will know the name of Einstein. And there is a book about Einstein and how he made a great blunder in which has been put out recently. And there are many flaws in Einstein's personality, but he's thought of as one of the most intelligent men in the world, and not just by non-Muslims, but also by Muslims. As opposed to this, one of the great mashayikh of Islam recently died in 2018, 5 years ago. Nobody knows his name. So the most important questions that face us is the answer to why was this universe created? Who created it? For what purpose? Why were we created? What is the purpose of my life? What can I do to fulfill this purpose? What kind of knowledge do I need to lead the best possible life that I can on this planet? So the question is, who had this knowledge? Einstein or Sheikh Murabat al-Hajj? If Einstein did not have this knowledge, and we know that he did not, then how come we think he is the very wise man? And how come we have no knowledge of Sheikh Murabat al-Hajj? This is just to demonstrate that what we think of as knowledge and what we think of as wisdom has been conditioned by our education. It is a wrong education. It teaches us to value things which are not valuable, and it teaches us to ignore the things which are important. So the answers to the critical questions, Allah Ta'ala tells us that the universe was created as a testing ground for us. It is a temporary place where we will stay for a short while. Western education says that the universe was created in an accident. Just it happened all by itself. And Allah Ta'ala teaches us that there is a purpose of our lives. We have a very short life, and in this life, Allah Ta'ala خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So He created life and death to see who will do the best deeds. So that is the purpose of our life, to do the best deeds. Western education teaches us that our lives are meaningless. We will all die and we will become dust, and nothing happens after that. So how do we do the best deeds? Allah Ta'ala teaches us that the Sharia has been given to us, the law of Islam, and this is the path to success. The Sharia actually means the road or the path. And so if we follow the Sharia, we can reach success. It tells us how to live our lives so that we can reach success on the day of judgment. As opposed to this, Western education says that man is an animal. We are all in a jungle. This is cutthroat competition. There is only one rule: survival of the fittest. You either kill or you are killed. So your job is to kill everybody and become the survivor. So these are the answers which Western education provides us. So again, there is the question of knowledge. What kind of knowledge should we seek? So Islam teaches us that we need to learn that the real success is on day of judgment. So how do we succeed on the day of judgment? How to do the best deeds? What is a good deed? What is a bad deed? What is the knowledge which will allow us to do the good deeds and succeed? In the West, there is no akhirah, there is no God, there is no judgment, there is no afterlife. So the only thing is how to succeed in this world. Success means power, pleasure, profits, all the benefits of this dunya. Survival of the fittest is the only moral law. And that is why the West started global colonization and conquest. And that is the best way to maximize wealth and power. And knowledge of building bombs and weapons and organizing economic power to dominate, that is useful knowledge. Knowledge of how to succeed in the day of judgment, that is useless knowledge according to the West. So they don't teach any of that. They only teach how to get power, how to get pleasure, how to get profits. So when this kind of lecture is given, Muslims immediately ask the following question. Well, if we start focusing on success of the akhirah, then automatically we will lose our focus on this dunya, so we will become failures in this dunya. So Allah Ta'ala reassures us that وَلَا تَحِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا أَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَىٰ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So if you believe and follow Allah, then you will also be given worldly success. And if you look at the rise of Islam, you will see that the Muslims were pursuing the pleasure of Allah, and they created the greatest empire that mankind has seen with the help of Allah. And they did something which has never before been seen. They took two advanced civilizations which have been in existence for hundreds of years, and they destroyed both of them, just a handful of Muslims. So the worldly power was given to the Muslims because they pursued the success of the akhirah. So it's not that we will become failures in dunya if we focus on pleasing Allah Ta'ala and success of the akhirah. So we have just reviewed that the Quran says that corruption occurs on the land and sea, bad things happening. Today we are seeing lots of bad things. Why? Because of our evil deeds. And Allah Ta'ala will not change our condition until we change ourselves. So, how do we change society? By changing ourselves. So, today, the majority of the efforts that we are making are telling other people that you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and the leaders should be doing that, and the USA should be doing that, and Belgium should be doing this, and Africa should be doing this. But nobody talks about what I should be doing. And that's the only thing which matters. If you want to change the world, I am the only one I can change, and I am the world. So we have to recognize our colonized minds, because one simple sign is that we know who Einstein is, and we don't know who Sheikh Murabatul Hajj was. And that's a sign of colonization. We know what is who are the heroes of the West. We don't know who are the heroes of Islam. So we have been taught that by our education that the purpose of our life is to maximize pleasure. This is what economics teaches. And then, of course, useful knowledge is that which will help us achieve this goal. So this is about producing goods and consuming goods. There's no concept of spiritual progress, because we are just another kind of animal. Animals don't have spiritual progress. So first thing we do is to remember the message of the Quran, that whoever saves one life, it is as if he has saved the entire mankind. So in the eyes of Allah Ta'ala, one life is just as precious as all of mankind. So saving one life, just my own life, is like saving all of mankind. So Hadith says that don't consider any good deed as small, even smiling on the face of your brother. So we are thinking that, who am I? I'm a little person. And what can I do? I can do only little things. So in the eyes of Allah, if I can change my life, this is as if we have changed the whole world, all of humanity. And if I can do one small good deed, that can be as valuable as huge deeds, and we will see. So the key to the revolution, to make a big change in the world, we have to start by making small changes within ourselves. Now, it seems very paradoxical. So does it mean that we should go and retire into a cave and do zikr of Allah? And if we do that, and maybe we do that, that will bring us close to Allah, then the world will not change. So it doesn't make any sense. But as I said, when you take the Quran as your gold standard and you say that, okay, if it doesn't make sense, it's because my thinking is wrong, so I have to change my thinking, then you can understand the solution to this problem. So the solution is that how do we make change in ourselves? By trying to change the world. And Allah Ta'ala has told us how to struggle with the world. So this is a very subtle point. You have to think about it. And one example which makes it clear is the isometric exercise. So in an isometric exercise, I stand near the wall and I use both of my hands and I push the wall as hard as I can. Now this seems like a silly thing to do because the wall is not going to move, but the goal is not to move the wall. The goal is to build strength of my muscles. So just like that, you see, when you see somebody jogging and you say, oh, he's going very fast, he's trying to get to some place, and you offer him a ride, that, okay, why don't you come in my car and I will take you there very quickly. So he says, no, I'm not trying to get to any place. The jogging itself is building my strength. So we struggle against the world not because we want to change the world, but because we want to build our spiritual progress. So when you make a mistake, so lots of people are working on trying to create Islamic government, trying to bring out the Khilafah and basically changing the whole world. And then they are very disappointed. Oh, we have been working for decades and no Islamic government in sight, no Khilafah in sight. We have been working on trying to eliminate bid'ah, but there is no reduction. It's increasing. So when you're looking at the external world for results, then you will be disappointed. The wall did not move. But if you make the intention of changing yourself, you will see that if you try to implement the orders of Allah in our lives and in the society, you will sense your own spiritual progress, and you can sense it from day to day, from the morning to the night. You will see a change in yourself, and that is the revolution. The revolution starts inside us. So how do we create an Islamic society? That is the problem that is in front of us. And so we have a three-dimensional approach, which I have outlined in other places, but it's very simple. We describe where do we stand right now, and we are all living in a market society created for and required by a capitalist economic system, and this is very far from the ideal. So what is an ideal society of Islam? Well, a capitalist society is built on greed, competition, and individualism and hedonism, pursuit of pleasure in this dunya. An Islamic society is built on generosity, cooperation, on social responsibility, taking care of those who are poor and needy and powerless, and on striving for success in the akhirah. So obviously, in every dimension, we are living in a society which is the opposite of what is desirable. So then the question is, the third dimension is transformative. So we've described where we are, where we want to go. Now, what is the path which will lead us from where we are to where we want to go? So how can we get from a market society to an Islamic society? So that is the goal of this lecture. So as I said, the first step is to have a clear idea of where we stand. So since we live in a capitalist society, we will look at the capitalist ideas about that society. So this is a sensible definition of what is a society. And this is very important to understand. What is a society? It is a network of social relationships. So we have roles and responsibilities within that society. I expect that, when I buy a good from the store, I expect that the store owner has provided me with good quality of goods, and the store owner expects that I am giving him correct currency, not fake currency, and so on. So there are many things. I'm supposed to be working at a job to provide money for my family, and many things. So that's general what is a society. Now, what is a market society? So this is something that we need to understand, because this is not contained in your regular economic textbooks and not even in your Islamic economic textbooks. So the central characteristic of a market society is that it is based on massive overproduction. It produces much, 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 much more than what is necessary for lives of people. So to think of this, let's divide the goods into two categories. There are needs and there are wants. So now we define needs broadly in Islamic style. I will get to that later. And but outside of the needs, there is a huge amount of production of W. W is both wants, and W also stands for wasteful. So basically, the key to understand a market society is that W-type production and consumption is much, much, much larger than what is necessary. So we produce a lot of waste and we consume a lot of waste. So to understand what is necessary, Allah Ta'ala specifies it very clearly, that we can eat and drink and enjoy comfort and even beautify our life, but we should not do israf and we should not do tabzir. Do not spend more than what is needed, do not waste, and do not spend money on that which is haram and prohibited. So this is a standard classification, that what is allowed is necessities, what we need for ourselves, comforts, anything which makes us more comfortable, and beautification. You can decorate your house, you can make your clothing more beautiful. But the fourth thing is excess, which is there are many categories which fall into excess and haram. For example, having a huge wedding celebration and spending money on music and lights and things like that, which are unnecessary and which are done very commonly. Because why? Because the society expects it from us. So things like that are israf or tabzir. So, very contrary to the teachings of Islam, Allah Ta'ala says that you are welcome to follow your needs. Do enjoy this world, take comfort, beautify life, but do not follow idle desires. So, as opposed to normal economics encourages wasteful production and wasteful consumption, because market society depends on creation of waste. But the Quran prohibits wasteful production and wasteful production. It says that do not follow your desires because they will lead you astray. It says that do not prefer the life of the, do not enjoy any, do not prefer the life of this world. And so, if you fear your Allah and you restrain your souls from acting according to the desires. So, we have a lot of desires. We want to do a lot of wasteful things, but we have to prevent. This is exactly the opposite of economic theory. It says that you have to pursue all of your desires, fulfill your desires. But Islam teaches us no, you can fulfill your jaiz desires, your permissible desires, but you have to stop your soul from following the wrong desires. So now in a market society, you need to produce W goods, wasteful goods, which nobody wants. And so how are you going to do that? Well, the solution is marketing. You have to convert wants into needs. You have to make people say that for social status, you have to have a car and you have to have these things. Otherwise, you will not have any standing in society. So this creates a cycle. People want the W goods and then they have to labor to earn wages. But when they labor in order to buy these W goods, and when they labor, they produce the W goods also. So this leads to what says law, that if you create the goods, suppose you start producing the goods, then you will pay wages to the laborers. The laborers will have the wages which they'll use to buy the goods. So it's a sort of a cycle. But the key thing for us to understand here is that capitalism manufactures the goods, but it also manufactures the desire for wasteful goods. And this is contrary to Islam. We need to, this is the front at which modern economics collides with Islamic economics. Because modern economics says that yes, you should pursue your wasteful goods desires, because that's needed to run the economy. If you don't, if you stop following your wasteful desires, then you will stop producing wasteful goods and the economy will collapse. Aggregate demand will collapse. So, but Islam says that desire for wasteful goods is wrong and not permissible. So, economists believe in this theory of consumer sovereignty, and that whatever the desire, you have to fulfill it. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, whether it's haram or halal, whether it's wasteful or necessary. The goal of life is to maximize the pleasure from consumption of goods and services. You have to this statement is written in all economic textbooks. We have to understand that this is not science, this is a religion. This is something which is a mistake which many people have made. They think of economic as a science, but this idea that our goal of life is to maximize the pleasure from consumption of goods, this is a religion. This religion is identified in the Quran as the worship of the nafs. And so economic theory is actually worship of the nafs. It's also identified as nafs-e ammara. You have to do whatever the nafs commands you to do. But we are not permitted to. Nafs-e ammara is the lowest spiritual state, which we are not allowed to have. So, how can we change this? Well, we are we are trained to think of ourselves as labor. And we do the labor and we produce wasteful goods. And we create for ourselves wage income. But we provide more profits to the capitalist in the process of laboring. So what the capitalists do with these profits, they've already produced the goods, but they also have to produce the demand for the goods, and so they use this profits to advertise, to create in us the desire for buying these wasteful goods. And so we earn this income, and then we by producing wasteful goods, and we spend this income by buying wasteful goods. So it's a self-sustaining system. On the one hand, we labor to earn wages allow and produce wasteful goods, and these wages allow us to buy the wasteful goods. So we have to break out of this cycle, and we can't make revolutionary changes in one step. So we just make small changes, one step at a time. Reduce the purchase of wasteful goods, and reduce our labor. Yeah, when we don't need to buy so much waste, then we don't need to work as hard to earn as much income. And so this will free us both on the mental side, we don't need to buy those things, and on the labor side, we don't need to work to buy those sides. And how do we do that? Well, that was covered in the first lesson. If we learn to be content with what we have, then we will not desire more goods. If we give shukr to Allah for what we have, Allah Ta'ala will increase our blessings. And this can be in the form of more goods or just more happiness with what we already have. And if we trust in Allah that when we make these changes to move one step towards Allah, then Allah Ta'ala will take 10 steps towards us. He will not abandon us. Because the shaitan makes us fear that if we step out of this system, if we reduce our engagement, we will become poor. So one of the things that we should do in order to reduce our desire for wasteful goods is to spend on the needs of others instead of our own wants. In our neighborhood, there will be people who don't have enough for their basic needs. There are people who can't buy their own medicine. There are people who can't buy food. So instead of spending money in luxury restaurants and in getting the finest and best goods, we should prioritize the needs of other over our own luxuries. And this is actually built into our hearts. And Hadith says that you should spend time with the poor. This will soften our hearts, and it will appeal to us it will make us realize that our problems are very small, and it will motivate us to help. So what will happen if we start this strategy? Well, we will have lower standards of living. We will have simpler lives. And this action of changing our behavior will change our beliefs. So it will break us out of the capital. The capitalist system says that you have to pursue more and more goods, you have to pursue more and more income. When we start breaking out, we will see that we don't need more and more income, and we don't need more and more goods. And we can trust in Allah Ta'ala to fulfill our needs. So, ash-shaytanu ya'idukum al-faqr wa ya'murukum al-fasha wallahu ya'idukum maghfiratan minhu fazla. So don't fear Allah, the idea that shaitan will say that, oh, if you stop earning, or if you reduce your earnings, then you will become faqir. No, because Allah Ta'ala has promised His maghfirah and His fazl, His bounty. So He will give whatever you lose by dropping out of capitalism and pursuing Islamic society. So once we have saved our time and effort and energy, what should we do with this? So remember that a society is defined by social networks. So one part is to reduce our engagement with the capitalist social networks. The capitalist system defines us as you are a laborer, you are a consumer, you are a producer, you are a boss, you are an employee, etc. There are many different roles in a capitalist society. So, in these roles, we have to change the roles from market roles, which are for money, to social roles. So this means reimagining the market. But more importantly, we have to build the social networks of an Islamic society and prioritize them. So the first thing is to build myself, which means that I should pursue excellence in conduct. And that is Prophet Muhammad SAW was the most excellent role model for us in terms of conduct. Then we go to strong family. This is the uh, key unit of a Islamic society. So we have to build our families, we have to build communities, and Allah Ta'ala tells us about the kinfolk, and so much emphasis is placed on Sila Rahmi, and also a lot of emphasis on our neighbors, so the neighborhood community. So, with this effort, we have to build these social relationships and serve our neighborhood and kinfolk. So, the first step of this is self transformation, change my own life. So, remember that one life is as precious as all of humanity. What does this mean? How can one equal 6.5 billion? This doesn't make sense mathematically. Well, this is in terms of potential. Just like a seed has the potential to become a tree, and the tree can produce thousands of seeds, which can produce millions of trees. And so, one seed is equal to 1 million or 1 billion seeds if it develops its potential. Just like that, if we develop our potential, we can change the world. And how do we develop this potential? By struggling to change the world, not with the idea of changing the world, but with the idea of changing ourselves. But as a side effect of this effort on the external world, the external world will actually change by the will of Allah. So, how do we struggle with the world? Well, there are lots of movements in Islam, and they are all doing right. You have to understand that we have to uh, be united as an ummah. This is one of the orders of Allah. So we should not say that you are doing wrong and you are doing wrong. So there are people who are working for Khilafah, there are people who are working on jihad, people working on tabligh, people working on government, there are people who are saying that we need to return to the Salaf, people who are working on Islamization of knowledge, there are people who are working on Sufi tariqats and our spiritual development, people who work on many other methodologies for revival of Islam. So there are 72 branches of faith, and all of them are important. We don't deny, we don't denigrate, we don't minimize, we don't belittle our brothers who are working in any dimension of the faith, because there's so much work to do. There are so many battles to be fought that we cannot fight all of them. So we are happy that somebody is fighting on the front, which we cannot take care of. All of these branches have a place in the Islamic revival. But remember that this message of Allah Ta'ala starts with Iqra and says that Allama al-insana ma'alam ya'lam. So we know that knowledge, the right kind of knowledge, is at the root of an Islamic revival. But what kind of knowledge is that? So among the many kinds of efforts, it is the community which is the core, because the community is the driver of social change. One man by himself cannot change the world, but he can build a community, and that community can change the world. And this is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ did. And this is signaled in the ayat that Allah Ta'ala united their hearts when the Muhajirin came to Medina. Then Allah Ta'ala united the hearts of the Muhajirin and the Ansar, and Allah Ta'ala says that this is such a precious gift that if you had spent all of the wealth on the earth, you could not have done this. So the unity of the hearts is a bigger treasure than all of the wealth on this planet. So instead of pursuing GDP per capita, the Quran tells us to pursue love. So, how do we start? So, the family is the building block of the community. So, we need to strengthen our relationships by parents, with our spouse, with our children, and with our extended family. And how do we do that? Well, by prioritizing family over our career. Basically, you can say that what defines capitalism is that you prize your career over your family, because your career is your role in the capitalist economy. So if that is more important than your family, that means you're a capitalist. So if your family is more important than your career, then that means that you are trying to build an Islamic society. So if you take nothing else from this lecture, this is the central takeaway. Work on building your family by investing time in your relationships with your family. And this is also mentioned in the Quran and Hadith. And how do we do that? Well, uh, the families break up because people think that he is doing me harm. So Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran that if somebody does you harm, you should return that by doing something good. And that will change the hearts of the people. And the same thing is mentioned in the Hadith that Allah Ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ said that what is Sila Rahmi? It is not to return a good deed for a good deed. It is when your relatives do bad to you and then you respond by doing good to them. So we should do whatever it takes to strengthen our family ties, because actually what is critical today is that the family is under attack. The family has already broken up. It is completely shattered in the West. More than 50% of children are being born outside of marriage to single mothers. And these same pressures are applying to the Islamic world today. And families are breaking up in the Islamic world. So, this is the most critical front on which we must fight. And unfortunately, Muslims are not even aware that this is a front. They are battling on all other fronts. They're talking about trade and exports and dollar, but they're not talking about what we need to do to strengthen our families. And the families are the building block of the Islamic society. So, how do we strengthen the family? Well, both Hadith and the Quran mention the importance of love. There is a Hadith that a believer loves and he is loved. And there is no khair in someone who is not loved by his neighbors. So, um, there are two hadiths about you will not enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love one another. And you should spread salam in order to achieve this love. But spreading salam is not just words. When we say salam alaikum, we should say it with our hearts. And what does it mean to say it with our hearts? It means that we are concerned about you, your condition, and we hope that you have peace. And if there is something troubling you, we will help you find that peace. And another hadith which says that we are merciful and kind to each other and we love each other. And we are like one body, so that if any part of the body feels pain, we should also feel that pain. So service is the key to community. How do we build relationship? We build by, instead of, what capitalism teaches us is to obey the nafs, follow your idle desires. So today, whenever we have a free moment, we say, okay, what would I like to do? I want to watch a movie. I want to play a game. I want to go for something which will make me happy. So instead of that, think about what can I do to make somebody else happy? And that is instead of thinking about your own happiness, there's a very interesting experiment One person gathered 1,000 people, and he had each person fill up a balloon and put in their name inside that balloon in writing. Then all of the 1,000 balloons were mixed up, and people were said, "Go and find your own balloon." So at the end of half an hour, very few people had their own balloons. There were so many balloons you couldn't find. Nobody could find the own balloon. So then he said, "Okay, let's do this in another way. You go and pick up one balloon and look at the name on that balloon and give that balloon to the person with that name on it." So in 5 minutes, everybody had their own balloon. So what do we learn from this? That if you think about the happiness of others, everyone in the society will be happy. But when you're thinking about your own happiness, nobody will be happy. So some practical strategies on how to create change. There is a nice verse by Allama Iqbal कि वो एक सजदा जिसे तू गना समझता है हजार सजनों से देता है तुझको नजात. If we focus on just one thing, then we will be protected from 1,000 problems. So a very practical strategy is that I have a limited amount of energy. Don't stop. Don't fight all the battles. Don't fight for your worldly goods. Don't fight. Uh, there's a curtain of darkness which is following your desires and trying to achieve worldly goals, which capitalism. But there's also Nurani Parde, curtains of light. These are Islamic battles, which seem like they are good things to do, like pursuing some ends which might have a beneficial Islamic outcome. The thing is that you should be doing things where you can be effective. So, as I say, lose 1,000 battles in order to win one. Put all your effort into winning one battle. Now, if you are a politician, if you are placed in a government, then you should be working on fixing that. But if I'm living in Pakistan, I shouldn't be worrying about American foreign policy. I have nothing I can do about that. So but unfortunately, we are worrying about what's happening in Brazil and what's happening in Japan, and not worrying about what's happening in my home. So focus your energies on fighting one battle and win that. Put everything into winning that one battle. So how do we win that one battle? Well, take a big battle, and like building social networks, which I will discuss in greater detail. This is going to take a year, 10 years, 100 years maybe. So what you do, then you become discouraged. So divide that into a small. Okay, there's a big battle, but divide it into very small steps, and then take one step on one day. Take a goal for 1 day and fulfill that goal, and then feel happy that I have taken one step towards a goal which is 1,000 miles distant, and thank Allah. If you give thanks to Allah that I was able to do this one little thing, Allah Ta'ala will enable to do you a lot more, because those who make shukr, Allah Ta'ala increases their blessings. So what is the task? We want to build an Islamic community. Now, this is actually a hugely difficult task. You shouldn't take it easy. You shouldn't think that this is easy. We have to build relationships. Every relationship requires time and effort and energy. So there is a neighborhood community, there is a work community, there is a family community, and today we have virtual communities. So if you think about building all these communities, you just won't have enough time in your life to do that. So what should you do if you don't have time to build all of those relationships? If you work on one thing, you won't be able to work on another. So choose the path of least resistance. Choose the easiest tasks. Don't choose the hard tasks. But remember that our spiritual growth depends on choosing the right level of challenge. If you choose something which is too easy, there is no growth. If you choose something that is too hard, then you will be discouraged and abandon effort. So you have to choose a medium level which needs some work, but it can be done and you can do it. And when you succeed, you feel happy. And this requires working your muscles at a level which will create change. If you put your muscles into something too hard, they will tear and they will be wasted. If you do some exercise that is too easy, you will not change. But if you do the exercise at the right level, you will achieve spiritual growth. So you can judge what is the right level for you. So we can start by rebuilding our work relationships. So, so we are working in a firm. So we should try to change how the firm works. Instead of thinking of firm as maximizer of profits, we should think of our firm, our workplace, as provider of services. We should build this spirit in ourselves. We should encourage our fellow workers to also think about providing service to the public as the goal, instead of making money, instead of earning wage from labor. And think of the firm as a family with social connections. And take small steps. Do what is easy. For example, build one non-market relationship. Find someone in your firm whom you can make friends and say that, we are working for money, but actually we should be working for providing service, and we should not spend so much time on our work that it takes away from our family, and so on. Find someone who is sympathetic, who has similar ideas, who is easy target. So do one step towards these revolutionary goals. And there is one common problem that arises when we start to do revolutionary change. So they say that, okay, nothing can be done unless we have the government. So we wait until we have the government in our hands, and then we will do things. So that's two-step thinking. Another way is to say, okay, let's first unite the Ummah at the level of Pakistan, then we will worry about the Ummah. So again, this doesn't work. Two-step thinking is, okay, let me work on myself, and once I am a perfect person, then I will give dawah to others. And one of the problems that will arise in this, okay, first let me build a community, let me make friends, and let me make sure that there are lots of people. Once we have a community, then we will create change. No. Do both things together. Build a small community. Take 1, 2, 3 people, and then say, okay, let's work on a problem. So work on a problem that the large community would do. Work on it on a small scale, because actually that work creates the community. When you say 2 or 3, okay, let's take care of all the hungry people in our neighborhood. Okay, so it's a task which is big and large. Let's try to educate those people who don't have literacy in our neighborhood. All right, so this task requires building a school. No, I can take one person and teach. And if there are 2 people in my community, then we can work together. By focusing on a task, this is the way to create community. Okay, this is a job to be done. Are you willing to participate? So doing jobs creates community. Building community gives us the power to do jobs. So do both together. So how do we build a community? We have to identify the needs and the interests and the capabilities of the community. So we talk to people to find out what their interests are, and we find our common goals, and we try to discover the strengths and capabilities of the members, try to create consensus on what are the problems we face, what are the challenges which are facing the community, and try to identify opportunities which will be created. If we work together, we can actually solve this problem. By the way, this idea of community was lost in the West. It's a complicated thing, and I am running out of time, so I won't discuss it. But basically, in the West, the only way of creating collective action is at the government level. Everyone has their own religion in a secular society, so they can't work together for common goals. So the only way to create collective action is the government. And some Muslims have been deceived by this into thinking that for collective action we need the government, but that is wrong. Actually, for collective action we need to build a community. So building community is hard work, very hard work. So we need to motivate. And I have two books listed here. One is Muntaqib Ahadith and Fazail Amal. And all of these describe the virtues given in the Ahadith, and they are provide motivation to Muslims to do the hard work required for building a community. How do you build social relationships? That's something that today in a virtual world we are used to texting and building virtual relationships. So we have forgotten how to build social relationships. So start small, work on easy people like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he first got the message, he went to his nearest people. He went to Abu Bakr, and he went to Ali. He went to his wife Khadija. And so that's how you start. When you start with your wife, or you start with your husband, and look for people with common interests, and who already have good community with you. And then there are certain skills that you need to listen to what the other people are saying, and for example, free information that is given. And one of the things that is very important is that learn to spot and admire small good deeds. If somebody does something very small but good, identify it and admire it and praise it and encourage it. Because when you encourage one small step, people will be taking bigger steps. And of course, Hadith tells us that tell people that you love them for the sake of Allah. And this is also very important. Communicate your praise and your admiration and your love, and suppress. Do not look at their faults. Even if you see that, even if you see them, just blame your heart for looking at the faults of your brother instead of telling him about it. There are many things we can do in terms of social events, like having a weekly meeting with a few people. Don't have big parties, because then you don't have that doesn't create the social connection. And discuss the Quran or something else, some common, and have some tea and have some biscuits. So work together for common goals. There are many methodologies for building community. One of the use mashwara and istikhara for progress. This is very important, because mashwara also builds community, and istikhara brings you the help from Allah to guide you in the directions. And there is one strategy from Tabligh, which is that on first you try to reach 1,000 people on a small scale with a little message, and then you look at who responds to this message, and with those people who respond, you work harder. So basically, this is how we should, when we try to build community, reach out to a large number of people with a small amount of effort, and then focus your efforts on the few people who will respond, and that will give you the ground roots. As soon as we start building community, we faced with a critical question. How should we, men and women, especially the mixed parties, etc., are not permitted. Intermingling is, but one thing that is for sure is that females are much better at building community than males. They have naturally better at this. This is what they have been built to do. And males and females have worked together from the earliest times. And there are many different standards prevailing in different places, like in some areas in KPK in Pakistan, women and men are just very strongly isolated. But if you are living in a university, women and girls and boys are just studying together in very mixed environments. So there is a lot of different norms. So when you arrange your meeting, you shouldn't go to extremes. You should just try to do one step better than what is dominant. So if there is women and men are studying together in the university, you can have meetings with both women and men, but just make sure that they keep separate. Do a little bit better than common, but don't go to extremes. Otherwise, if you change the social norms too much, then the people in that social arena will not come to you. This is a unique strength of Islam, that we have diversity and tolerance. We allow for many different shades of meaning, many different types of ways to follow Islam, and we tolerate each other. There are four different mazahib. There are many Sufi traditions. They're all different. They have different rulings, different ideas, but they say we are all Muslims and we accept. The Maliki doesn't say that, Shafi'i is out of Islam. We all say, okay, you can follow Shafi'i, you can follow Hanbali, you can follow Hanafi. All of them are good. So just like that, if you think of the Hajj, so many different groups from so many different countries. So there's Islam in Nigeria, Islam in Malaysia, they all look very different, but they're all part of Islam. So the difference of opinion is a mercy, because different people have different temperaments. And so we allow for different types of communities according to different. We're not going to impose one fixed pattern that this is how it should be done. You devise your community according to your local social norms. Now, communities are local, but we need action at the level of the Ummah. So we have to link communities. And Islam provides us with a natural model. It says, okay, your daily prayers are at your local masjid, this builds your local community. But the Jummah prayer is at a big masjid which gathers multiple communities. So we have that infrastructure already. So what we should do is, when we have multiple communities, you are building your community in your neighborhood, then there are all the communities in your different neighborhoods. So get them together on Jummah and send representatives from each community to discuss every week about common problems. Then the Eid al-Fitr gathers the whole city, so you can discuss at a larger scale. And Eid al-Adha gathers the whole Ummah. So this is a natural way in which the rituals of Islam show connections at higher and higher levels. And so this is a way this is a pattern we can follow. One of the things we need to do is to share experiences. I'm building communities. It's a very hard task, and I'm facing this problem. So you have any suggestions for me? So for example, Lisa has been working on building the Ghazali project in Indonesia for more than a year. So she can share her experiences. And anybody else who is trying to start a group like that, they can share their experiences. We also have a lot of existing models. People have built communities. In Turkey, there are lots of different communities-based organizations, and they have their own methodologies. So we can learn from their experiences. But what is the key? We have to de-link from the market society. It is the market society which has conditioned us to think in terms of prices and wages and purchases, and everything is in the market. And even, to just give one example, the teacher-student relationship in Islam is a very precious relationship. The student has respect and admiration for the teacher. The teacher has love for the student, and they want the student to be the best possible. But in a market relation, the teacher pays the student, the student pays the teacher a fees, and then he hires the teacher to provide him the education. This is a very different conceptualization, and this one is becoming more and more dominant. It has already taken over in the capitalist world, but it is also becoming prevalent in the Ummah. So this is, I think, the last slide and the end, and I've gone a little bit over an hour. and I thought that it would, but still we have some time for question and answer. So basically, to conclude, a society is a network of social relationships. Market societies are defined by laborers, consumers, producers, advertisers, and people who spread the philosophy of markets. Natural social communities are bad for capitalism because they attach us to our community and history. Capitalism wants anonymous people. People have no connection to anyone else, so they can be used as interchangeable parts, as human resources. So we have to prevent ourselves from becoming a human resource and become a human being. Even when we interact with somebody in a dukan, in a store, we should greet them. We should ask them about their family, ask them if they are doing well, and so on. So basically, we have to replace market relationships with Islamic relationships. And we must build these connections and we must strengthen these connections. And these are all recommended by the teachings of Islam. So I'll stop here and we can start our question answer period. Okay, so that is all from me. And now we can take questions from the audience. All right, so Usman Mustafa, yes. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, are you listening
Hello.
my voice?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I 100% agree that there is a wasteful consumption and wasteful production. That's not only have a socio-economic, but also have environmental degradation, which is now well documented in the most of the literature. So it's creating problem for the whole society. Is wasteful production
Absolutely,
and
you're 100% right. Capitalism works by exploiting people and the planet. So
exactly.
that's what they make profits for, by cutting down trees and destroying
Yeah.
the environment.
Yes. Thank you. It was a very good session, and we really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? There are so many messages in the chat that I'm not sure about where to begin. Let's anybody? Yes, Asif Shamas.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, Asif. Wa alaikum assalam.
Okay, sir, my question is like, what is we just you spoke about the filth of capitalism. So, but what is the major problem with Muslim scholarship or leadership these days? Like, my question is about a contemporary issue of Muslims. That these days in Pakistan, I'm seeing scholars differentiating between deen and dunyavi knowledge, and my observation could be wrong, but I observed that they complete cut off the knowledge of sciences from Islam. So what is your viewpoint about this?
You see, the lecture, I was saying that Allah Ta'ala has created this entire world. Everybody else in this planet is here for my test only. So how they are, what they are doing, whether they are bad, whether they are good, it is of no concern to me, because Allah Ta'ala will not ask me what the ulama were doing and what the scholars were doing and what the government was doing. Allah Ta'ala is asking, what were you doing? So all of that is external environment. So the question is, what can I do? This is the only question which matters. If I can identify what is the order of Allah for me and fulfill it, then I am successful. It doesn't matter if the whole world is going to waste. Yes, Rubaiyat.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I had a question. About how research in fundamental science or pure math. If somebody's interested in this kind of stuff, how can that work in this sort of like Islamic model? Because I mean, the way it works in capitalism, the way funding is gathered, or like how would this work? How can somebody who's interested in this
Yeah,
grow.
that's a very good
And
question. One which I have been working on for in my own life, because I am a professor. So basically, the way we teach these subjects is that you will learn this in order to be able to earn a living for yourself. Statistics or econometrics, so that you will get a job as an economist. But suppose that the teacher thinks about how we can use this knowledge to provide service to mankind. This completely changes things. So I have, the economics, statistics, econometrics, all of these subjects change completely. Um, the, um, the nature of the subject, what you teach, and what you how you teach it, everything changes when you start thinking about how we can use this knowledge to serve humanity.
right, sir. If I may ask a follow-up question to that, if you would
Yeah,
allow.
sure. Yeah.
So, in terms of fundamental science, like for example, theoretical physics or something like that, you wanna learn something more about like particle physics or something like that, or neuroscience.
Mhm.
How can we think of this as a way to help others? So can this be a way to sort of increase people's iman in Allah? That okay, we by
Yes.
explicitating, so a person who's not very practically oriented but very much into theoretical, can that person think in this way, and could that work in this model?
Yes, but if you already have those skills, like for example, we can teach biology, physics, all as a showing how the miracles, the miraculous powers of Allah Ta'ala in the wonders of the creation. It is so fantastic what Allah Ta'ala has done, that even in the physics, the precision, the fine tuning of the universe to the trillionth decimal place. If the one of the powers of the one of the Planck's constant is off by one decimal place in the thousand places, the whole universe would collapse. So it's like a really precision tuned machine which Allah Ta'ala has created. So all of these, there are opportunities to admire. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, Tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqeen, when he talks about the creation, how beautiful the creation is. So this is one way to, yes, convert. But another way is that you start from the end. You start by saying that I want to serve mankind. So what kind of technology do I need in order to do that? So instead of saying that, okay, I have this hammer, how can I use it to help? You say, what are the tools that I need to help the Ummah? So that's a different approach, and it's much more useful.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. All right. Lubna Shahnaz. Yes. Can you unmute?
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम
Walaikum
जी
assalam.
आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं? Can you listen me?
Yes, I can hear you.
जी अगर आप मुझे अलाउ करें तो मैं उर्दू में बात कर लूं.
कर ले, मगर ऑडियंस में बहुत सारे नॉन उर्दू स्पीकिंग लोग हैं.
Okay, then I will talk in English. जी डॉक्टर साहब, the main, as you told here, that how to use this knowledge to serve humanity is important.
Yes.
So this is the main. So my point is, who is talking about this in the society? I mean, the people themselves have no training to discuss these things. So how they can inculcate to the their students in the society? Are you getting my point?
Yes, you are right. You are right about this, that very few people have. So we start where we are. We recognize that people don't have training. So we start giving that training, right?
Yes,
We start
and
from where, if we are at zero, then we take one step.
Yes.
We have the
And
Quran,
so,
and we have the Hadith, and we have the example of the Prophets and how he trained the Sahaba from Jahiliyyah to leaders
Yeah.
of the world. So our people are not as bad as the Jahiliyyah,
No,
and our
I would
conditions
say
are not
that,
as bad as the Jahiliyyah.
yeah, I mean, I would say that this our nation is the best, but the main issue is that there is no one uh, who give them the knowledge of this thing, that how you have to practically uh, I mean, this all this
So we
Islam is the
start by
character.
creating. Prophet ﷺ came. It was exactly the same situation. There was no one who was there to give them the knowledge of Islam. So he started with zero. So we start with zero. We follow his pattern. How he did it, we follow the same. Okay, let me move to Suhail Amin.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, I have two questions. First is that you have given us the way forwards, start forming communities and focusing self and family and start working.
Yes.
But could you identify some values to focus on, where to start? And
Well,
allow me the second question also. So
yes.
the second question is, yes, we can go ahead and start forming the communities, but and start working, but the onslaught of media and the values being promoted in education institutions, how effective could our communities could be while in their presence? Thank you.
Well, when Allah Ta'ala was creating mankind, then the angel said that, why are you doing this? There will be fitna and fasad and corruption and troubles, and we are here and live in peace and harmony. So this world was created as a testing ground for us. If everything was peaceful and nice and easy, then there would be no test. So this fitna, fasad, this all of the big problems, this is a part of our test. And what should we do? This is a very important question as to when we build the community, what should we do with this community? This is a very important question. Well, but there's no specific fixed answer because it will be local. You look at your own situations and you look at your community, you look at their capabilities, you look at the environment, you look at what it is possible to do to proceed, and then you do what is needed according to mashwara and istikhara. Ask Allah Ta'ala for his help and guidance in terms of what needs to be done. Okay, Muhammad Osama.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Sir, I want to discuss regarding your overproduction slide.
Yeah.
If one has the capacity and resources to produce excess goods and or services to fulfill the needs of other from those earnings, what's your take on it? Because in
Yes,
society
this is
there are
like
surplus
if
units
you have
and
the
there are
capacity and
deficit units.
possibility, then and to fulfill the needs of other, then this is not wasteful. This is very useful. If you produce bread to feed the hungry, that's not wasteful. That's you produce 1,000 breads. It's very useful. So if you anything that is being done according to the needs. Okay, Shadman Zafar.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
First of all, I am very much thankful to you for having this session and providing very useful insight. So I want to ask a question. Say for the sake of argument, if I say that the entire development that took place in the world, and that are the outcome of capitalistic system, be it Europe, even in India after the reforms and South Asian economies, when a market went towards capitalist system, the development is more pronounced. So how you answer such questions?
Well,
And
you see, the greatest development took place when Europe looted the entire world and became rich in the process. So, should we then start on a mission to loot and colonize and exploit the planet so that we can also become wealthy. These are the wrong goals to pursue. Yes, Umar Javed. Yes, Umar.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Nice to see you
Sir,
here.
Urdu mein पूछ लूं, if you don't mind. Oh, I'm not very good at English, that's why.
All right, go ahead.
मैंने पूछना है कि एक तो मुझे 2 सवाल होंगे। पहला तो ये है कि हम पढ़ना चाह रहे हैं, मेरी मिसेस डॉक्टर हैं और मेरा लेवल 7 है हॉस्पिटैलिटी एंड टूरिज्म मैनेजमेंट में ना। ये डॉक्टर सलीम साहब ने अभी कराची इज्तिमा पे कहा था कि पढ़ने के लिए इस मकसद से बाहर जाना कि ये पैसा कमाना वगैरह, तो इसमें उन्होंने थोड़ा सा मुझे ऐसा कर दिया कि मैं और मिसेस पढ़ने के लिए बाहर जाना चाह रहे थे, तो हमने थोड़ा सा ब्रेक ले ली कि यहीं पढ़ते हैं। तो क्या कहते हैं इस बारे में आप?
That's correct. I think that going outside to study to earn money is not a good idea, and it has caused. I don't generally advise people to go abroad for study for a number of reasons. But this is very specific question. You can ask me separately. Let me ask this iPad, no name. Yes, iPad, can you unmute and ask me your question?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi
Walaikum
wabarakatuh.
assalam. Walaikum
I am
assalam.
Muhammad Ashraf Abubakar. Sir, indeed, it was
Okay.
a very good lecture and a lot of learning out of it. I am very grateful. May Allah bless you utmost. My question is, sir, as an individual, what tools and capability which one God has gifted to any individual, and if he polishes from within to promote Islamic social concept or counter market strategy?
I didn't understand. Can you say that again?
What I want to say that Allah Ta'ala has given capabilities and tools within an individual.
Yes.
What should he promote more or most to
Well,
enhance Islamic social strategy and
and counter capitalism. I've said that capitalism works by creating a network of social relationships. We should weaken those, build Islamic style relationships, and ask Allah Ta'ala for His guidance. Shadman Zafar.
Thank you, sir, for giving me another chance. Sir, even if we understood well about the flaws in the capitalistic system, but I think so there is no exit. Even if we go to any Muslim countries or living in non-Muslim countries, Europe, West, everywhere, but there is no exit at all. We have to enter into labor force. We have to be a consumer at all front.
Yes, I'm
So
not
what to
asking that
do?
you should exit. I am just saying reduce your engagement. Put the family over the career. Put social relationships over market relationships. That's all. Prioritize one over the other. No exit. Let me ask Noha, because I haven't seen her for a long time. Can you ask me a question?
Assalamu alaikum, Professor Asad
Wa
Zaman.
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, yes, it's so nice catching up with you finally. And I
Mhm.
wish you and all the people a blessed Ramadan.
Jazakallah.
Thank you for this very useful, as usual, lecture, enlightening. And my question is, there was this slide on curtains of light, and you
Yes.
mentioned that no un-Islamic means to reach an Islamic goal. So can you please clarify it? And maybe if it's a big topic, or if it means something more personal for me, then maybe I email you. But can you just give me a brief
This is the
clarification?
terminology I took from the Sufi paths, that they have said that in order to, in the path to Allah, there are curtains of darkness. And after that, after you get through them, then there are curtains of light, things which appear to be from the Nur, but actually they are obstacles to the Nur of Allah. So that's roughly it. And getting more detail would be difficult. Yani there are things which appear to be very pious and religious, For example, suppose that you are told that, okay, there are so many blessings in reading the Quran, so you should spend all day and night reading the Quran, and you do that, well, then you get deprived of doing the much bigger good which is necessary and urgent. And like there is this famous hadith about the woman who people said that she prays all day, all night, and she's fast all day. So the Prophet ﷺ asked that who does her housework? So she said all the neighbors help. So Allah Prophet said that they are better off. They are better because they are doing the work that is needed. So that's
Yes.
what I mean.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Ambreen.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. My question is that in the market economy, there is a price of everything and value of nothing. So for jobs like teaching and for jobs like the judge, who have to be in difference to make decision, and they can make or create or destroy the society. So how to define, how to make the incentive structure for them to do their job best in the interest of the society and not in the interest of like earning money. And the second question arises because of this question that I was asked by a brother that going out of the country for study. I want to ask that, is it necessary to communicate, create community in your country or something? Because I find it more easy, more enabling environment outside the country to work on such things. And I have other role models like Triple IT. I have the chance to meet the founders of them. Like they worked in America to create a Triple IT because the country from where they were coming was not allowing them to do such things. So what do you say in this regard? Like,
well, as I said, everyone is in a different place, and I said follow the path of least resistance. Wherever Allah Ta'ala guides you and wherever is easy. So for some people it will be easy to build local community. For some people it will be easier to go elsewhere to build. So do whatever comes easiest to you. Do mashwara and istikhara. Daniel.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sir. So in the beginning, you told us that this Western epistemic framework is faulty, and you're absolutely right, the way it conceives man and the kind of purposes it gives us. The thing is, and then you also told us that, we should move away from wants to needs. But, what I reckon from it is this, that it's a matter of how we conceive and think. But then, I think it's a matter of how we feel as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so it means that, it is not possible without ihsan, first thing. So I would like to have your comment on that. Secondly, I was reading this book by Ibn Khaldun, the Muqaddimah, few months back, I guess. So, there are two models, evolutionary and revolutionary. And obviously, you were encouraging that evolutionary model, and I am inclined towards that as well, that first we bring change in ourselves, and then, ultimately the society would change. So he wrote in that book a line, and that line a little bit shattered this idea. Not shattered this idea, but, made me a little confused. He said that the religion of average man is on the religion of the elites or the powerful. So, I mean, how do you, make sense of this statement within that framework of evolution? So these are just two aspects I would like to have your comment on. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
I don't really know. As far as the ihsan is concerned, I've given a link for that a lecture of mine on ihsan. And as far as this is concerned, this is an entangled proposition. That is, the leaders are chosen from us, so what they follow is what values we develop will be the values that our leaders follow also. So, Muhammad Haq, I think this has to be the last question. We are already over the time limit.
Hello, Professor. Assalamu alaikum. I'm from the UK. So my name is Imran Haq, actually. My first name is Muhammad there. So I'm an economist by profession.
Yes.
I'm at University of Manchester. I've been following your lectures and I'm quite intrigued about your thought, and thank you for the excellent presentation today. And I love your idea of, say, moving towards the social relationship, prioritizing on social relationship over market relationship. My comments, and I've got just 2 comments, and I want your take on it. One is actually from your presentation, you're saying that we need to try to earn money. This is what I could understand, not only for myself but also for others. So
Earn money for myself and for others. I don't
no,
recognize
just
this.
basically, in order to move away from the capitalistic, greedy, profit maximization idea, if you work on, say, for example, for yourself, you look for maybe basic needs, or how do I say, like decent living, but at the same time, maybe you could try to earn money for helping others.
Oh, no. I said if you have money, then basically, instead of capitalism encourages us to spend this on our own desires.
Yes.
Instead of spending around desires, we should spend on needs of others. So this is
Yes.
just a substitution that we should do that will help us to get away from this mentality of pursuing the desires of the nafs, which is created by capitalism, and it is essential to the survival of capitalism that everyone should pursue their ideal desires.
Yes. So if somebody keeps that objective in his mind when he's pursuing at the worldly level, maybe that could help himself and also to the society. If you think about most successful people financially, say multi-millionaires, billionaires in the Western society, you will see that, say, if I just give an example of Warren Buffett or maybe Bill Gates, why do they, after building big empire of their billionaire empire, why do they go for charity, creating
Because they cannot spend
foundations?
that money themselves.
No, there is a sense of feeling there that when somebody becomes successful, they cannot spend their money on themselves only. So that's why they have to reach out to the other people. So I think that's the point. What is your thought on it?
That's a very complicated discussion, and next lecture I will be saying something about that.
And the other issue is about from your lecture, I was just thinking, Allah has taught us to make dua, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. By doing so, basically, he is asking us to pursue both dunya with hasana and akhirah with hasana together. They should be complementary. Like worldly pursuit with hasana should be complementary to the pursuit for akhirah. So, but our murabbis and the elders, they tend to advise us, if you want to pursue the Islamic life, you should just only focus on akhirah. So that's why we're losing out in this world. All the.
I think that this what I have suggested is not to retire into caves and pursue the akhirah. I've said that we build community, we provide service to our family and neighbors. So where is the this is all worldly stuff. So there is no retirement and no danger of abandoning the world. And it is actually, this is the hasanat of this world, is loving others and being loved. And this is something which is absent from capitalism. It is paying for, which is just built on market relationships, not social relationships. The hasanat of this world are not the goods of this world. They are the social relationships. It's being loved and loving. Okay, I think we have gone way over time, so I think we should stop now. Thank you, everybody. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you, everyone.